I believe my main task and ancillaries both follow regular conventions of media products. However, I think I've challenged the conventions of the subculture surrounding it. My magazine was based around skateboarding in the city of Sheffield. With my front cover, I tried to take inspiration from less common skateboarding magazines that challenge some of the generic conventions of magazines like Thrasher and Sidewalk. The front covers I looked at for these were Slap and Skateboard magazine. I also took inspiration from album covers like Joyce Manor, Never Hungover Again. I feel like these coaxed me to create a more minimalistic look to my magazine rather than the expected anarchistic anti-establishment message which skateboarders are stereotypically known for. First of all, when you think of a skateboarding magazine, you imagine a wide-angle lens shot of a professional skateboarder performing an impressive trick. This creates an image of the ideal self and appeals to the subcultural capital. Considering I had neither a wide-angle lens nor a professional skateboarder, I had to spruce my magazine up in different ways to make it appear interesting and eye-catching. I did this in many ways throughout my front cover, one of these being the white border around the image. This idea was taken from the Slap magazine and it helped to separate the image and the masthead, making both of them stand out individually. I added half of a wheel to the end of the masthead to juxtapose the idea that it was a skateboarding magazine, and this makes it look more unique to an audience. This is a generic convention of any magazine, to have a bold masthead that stands out and easy to read. Furthermore, I added a noise effect to my main image after editing it, with effects like contrast and curves. This was originally intended for a VCR glitch effect, however I decided against that since it looked too messy. I eventually stuck with the noise filter since it gave the magazine a more homemade retro aesthetic which would appeal to the modern day subcultural capital. This image also appeals to the ideal self since it clearly focuses on the model doing a trick from a low-angle shot looking up. This gives the audience reason to believe that the model is somewhat above them, like an inspiration. The white border helped to separate things like the price, issue number and date too, allowing me to place them in a place that is easy for the reader to find and fill some space at the top of my magazine. This is another generic convention of regional magazines that I followed. You'll see that there's no barcode on my magazine, and this is due to the fact that it's free. Being a regional magazine, you could say how this makes giving the price pointless. However, I wanted to make it clear that the magazine was free. I had to show that my magazine was clearly centered on Sheffield, otherwise it could have been a regular magazine for all anyone else knows. So I decided to add a black banner along the top of the page that fills up some of the blank area, allowing me to express the fact that it's a Sheffield-based magazine. I added colour on my cover lines as well as a little on my masthead to make the front cover more eye-catching to the reader too. I used a neon blue which could connote to the idea of anarchy and anti-establishment since neon colours are typically associated with punk. My cover lines were placed as a regular magazine would have them, on the side of the image but out of the way so they don't subtract from the main image. This was further to show that it's a magazine and not a poster.